Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashem, Hamashiach, wa Malak Yahweh Shah. All right, so what we're going to go over today is how the natives and the so-called Hispanics, the Mexicans, they fit the curses of Deuteronomy also. And what gave me the spirit to do this lesson is I had these two books, The Conquistadors and Pueblos and the Devastation of the Native Indies. And me reading these books, it helps me line up with the curses of Deuteronomy, how they fit the curses of Deuteronomy, right? So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to start off with is with Genesis 49 and 19. And I'm going to say this. The natives and the Hispanics, if you do not think that they are Israelites, man, you need to repent, man. For real, because you shutting up the kingdom of God to his people, man, because they are definitely the Israelites, man. So this is Genesis chapter 49 and 19. It says, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. So when you go into the word troop in the Hebrew, and it means a band, a troop, a marauding band. It says a troop, a band of divisions of army. So it says an army shall overcome him. All right. So, and we see where that history starts. It starts when they came over here, what they call is Arcereth, as in America. They changed it to America, right? Amerigo Vespucci, right? So, uh, dealing with this, so let me get this. So dealing with a Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Gad is going to overcome at the last. Why? Because in the land of his captivity, the Lord is going to wake him up to who he is. All right. So let's get it. Salakia. All right, so let's see how Gad even got over here in this situation in the first place, right? So this is Second Ezra chapter 13 and verse. We're gonna start at Salakia. Second Ezra chapter 13 and 40. It says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Shalmaneser the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. And so happened that place will be what we call America, which was called Osiris. And it's only called America because of Amerigo Vespucci or Americus Vespucci. He was a French conquistador, Spanish, however you want to break it down. He was a heathen. Right? He was Esau. So it says, but they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statues, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. So when we look at these books, the first thing I want to bring out in these books is called The Devastation of the Native Indies. This is a starter kick for all Hebrew Israelites to understand that the natives and the so-called Mexicans are their brothers. All right, so it said that they will come over here and follow the laws that the Lord have gave to them, but they didn't do it when they came over here, because in this book it tells you right here, this is Devastation of the Indies, page 16. It says the Europeans confronted with the Aztecs did the most to fuel arguments that American Indians were essentially barbarians. So when they came over here, this is all they were seeing. So like the Europeans were seeing when they came over, they seen barbarians. They didn't see men of the Most High God, right? Because they was not following the customs of the Most High God. Through each generation, the laws of the Most High God would perish because they was not teaching their children, and their children wasn't teaching their children until the laws of the Most High perished. And that's what made him send the Europeans, the conquistadors, the Spanish, the French, the Englishman over here to conquer them. Right? The Most High was not going to leave it undone, but we have to understand it as prophecy also. But it says the Aztecs' practice of human sacrifice genuinely horrified the Spanish and led some to believe if God could live in the Indies, so could the devil. So this is a lot that they were seeing over here, dealing with the Aztecs. They've seen a lot of human sacrifice, right? Whether it's the children, the women, or the men, right? And that goes into our law. Deuteronomy 18 and 9. You got Leviticus 17 and 12. And Deuteronomy chapter 12 and 23 also. Though these are Torah laws that we cannot be drinking blood, or we cannot eat the flesh of something that's alive, right? Or the flesh of human beings. We cannot do that. It's against the Torah. All right. So we see why the Most High sent the so-called white man over here to conquer them. Like I said, it's prophecy also, right? This is the virgin daughter of Babylon that talks about in Revelation. It was prophesied for this place to be destroyed, but that's another topic. So let's continue. So let's get into the curses now, right? And I didn't get all of them. I only got the ones that I can, as I was reading these books, that I can match with the curses of Deuteronomy. So we're just gonna kind of skim through it. So this is Deuteronomy 28, and let the first one I want to get is 25. It says, "The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth." Right. So all the kingdoms of the earth. Let's get that. Page 19. So this is page 19, and the conquistadors and pueblos. And the word pueblos means villages, the native villages. So it's the conquistadors and the native villages. And like I said, this is page 19. It says, "The Aztecs had never seen horses before. They were none in America until the Spaniards came. And the wild-eyed steeds the invaders rode into battle, and their heavy artillery terrified the natives. There was the legend believed by everyone that these white men were the descendants of God who had once ruled Mexico, right? Because Mexico is one of the first places they started to rule. So the word was getting around to the natives, right? Basically, it says, and that they would return someday and punish the people who had driven them away, right? It says there were also defections into the ranks of the Spaniards because of dissatisfaction with the tyrannical rule of the Emperor Montezuma, and then later on it tells you that Montezuma was stoned to death because he didn't know how to deal with the people. He didn't know how to deal with the situations with the Spaniards and the rest of the heathens invading their livelihood where they lived, right? So they stoned him out of fear. They was afraid. So they stoned him and they set up somebody else. But they ended up getting conquered anyways, man. So the Lord did all of that just so he can spread them out as slaves, man. So read the next verse 26 in Deuteronomy. It says, "And thy carcass shall be meat unto all the fowls of the earth, fowls of the air, and unto the beast of the earth, and no man shall fray them away." So what I've seen in a book, what made me relate to the curses of Deuteronomy relate to this is devastation of the native Indians, page 43. Hey, in a lot of these, I'm going to use more than once because some of these things in a book, it has 2 points that deals with 2 different scriptures in Deuteronomy 28. So if I go back to it, you will know why. So this is page 43, like I said. So it says, "And of those islands, the Spaniards perpetrated the same acts of aggression against the Indians and the wicked deeds described above, adding to them many outstanding cruelties, massacres, and burnings of the people, or executing them by flinging them to the fierce dogs." So that's the point that I'm trying to get out of here. It says flinging them to the fierce dogs. So going back to this curse, it says, "And thy carcass shall be meat unto all the fowls of the earth, the fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth." And a dog is a beast of the earth, man. And you can just imagine the ones that they was killing and they was leaving there, how the fowls of the air came and fed off of their bodies, man. So these curses hit them also, man. Lord willing, you get edified. But it says, "And no man shall fray them away." Nobody frayed these dogs away from them, from devouring them. And when you dig deeper into the book, they was even flinging the children to them. They was flinging the children in the ocean, in the waters. You know, we about to get into all that. But let's continue. Let's drop down to verse 29. It says, "And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways." So the natives was not going to prosper in their ways at all. Just like it happened to the Negroes, it happened to the native and the Mexicans also. They was not going to prosper in their ways. It says, And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. No man even try to save the natives, man. No man. The only woman I know about it that tried to stand up for the Mexicans is Armelita Torres, I believe her name is, and they called her the Mexican Rosa Parks because of the gasoline bash that they had to do when they crossed the border. She stood up against it, and it's called the gasoline riot. She's the only one I know that actually stood up, and tried to fight back after the devour of the natives in this time. Right. So let's continue. Let's read verse. Let's go to the devastation of the native Indians in page 31. All right, page 31. It says the kind. I'm doing this also because I want to bring this book out because these books have a lot of information about the natives and the Mexicans, man. Like I said, Lord willing, you get edified. It says, page 31, the common ways mainly employed by the Spaniards who called themselves Christian. So if you native or you Hispanic, Mexican, you call yourself Christian, this is why, man. It has nothing to do with what you believe. It's what was beaten to you. It says, who call themselves Christians, who have gone there to extirpate those pitiful nations and wipe them off the earth, is by unjustly waging cruel and bloody wars. Then, when they have slain all those who fought for their lives or to escape the tortures they would have to endure, that is to say, when they have slain all the native rulers and young men, since the Spaniards usually spare only the women and children who are subjected to the hardest bitter servitude ever suffered by man or beast. They enslaved any survivors with these infernal methods of tyranny. They debased and weakened countless numbers of those pitiful Indians. So that goes into them groping at noonday and in darkness. It says, and thou shalt not prosper in their ways. Why? Because they was always going to war. And when you go to war, you lose money. And not only that, they was losing all their cattle. They was losing all their food. They was losing their men of war. They was losing their children, their wives. They was losing a lot of things. And you cannot prosper in that. There's no prosper in that. And it also say, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled forevermore. They was used as spoiled because we just read that they would only spare the children and the women. That's them being spoiled. Women are spoil of war. It tells you that in Deuteronomy, that women are spoils of war. So let's continue. Verse 30, Deuteronomy. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. So that leads me to the devastation of the Indians, page 36. I believe it is. Right, 36. It says, the recompense they gave this great and good Indian ruler was to dishonor him through his wife. And it's going to tell us a way to how he dishonored him through his wife. So how do you dishonor another man's wife? It says, who was raped by a Christian officer. So they were raped. And it wasn't just one time. They will continuously do this because that's what Esau does, man. He's that sick kind of person, the son of perdition. All he think about is destruction, right? So it says that he would rape the man's wife as a sign of dishonor. He was dishonoring her because, the natives, they wouldn't want their wives after that, after they get raped. Just like the men with the bug breaking of dealing with the Negroes, the women looked at him as weak and the women didn't want him no more, right? So let's continue. It says, thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. So let's go to devastation of the Indies, page 55. So it says, this is the point. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. So it says, 55, page 55, this occurred at the time of year when grain should be sold, and it kept the Indians from their usual task. At seed time, later on, as a result, the Christians lacked grain, whereupon they seized the stores of the grain that the Indians kept for themselves and their families. In the famine that followed, more than 30,000 Indians perished of starvation. They was dying of starvation. They was planting the vineyards and they was not gathering the grapes thereof. right? And it don't just because it says grapes right here in Deuteronomy 28, it's a many of different things. You know, they the pumpkins, the turkeys, the everything, man, that they was given to the conquistadors, but the conquistadors wanted their gold, man, and then they wanted to see war. So let's continue. I want to get this on page 14. So I'm gonna go back and forth with these books, Conquistadors and Pueblos and Devastation of the Native Indies. Right. So this is Slovakia. Man, these are some crazy books, man. Actually reading these books and how you can match it with the curses of Deuteronomy. Hey, proving that the natives and the Mexicans are the Israelites, man. Because they definitely Israel, man. They give a damn what nobody say. I already believe that, but this is, that fire, that proof, man, that we need to solidify things. Right, so Slovakia. Okay, so all right, so let's continue. That's cool. So I want to read the next verse. Deuteronomy 28 and 31. It says, "Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thy enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them." Right. So that leads me to Devastation of the Indies, page 15. Right. Devastation of the Native Indians, page 15, and it says Spaniards in the Indies claim that the bulls gave the right to use just war to convert local populations who had refused to immediately accept Christianity. It says to immediately accept Christianity because if the natives refuse Christianity, it would use, okay, well, we coming in for the bulls, the ox, the animals that you have. We need these. We're starving. We don't have anything. They would use that as a reason to wage war against the natives, man. One second. All right, so let's continue. Slovakia. Okay. I was trying to find this picture so I can post it, but I can't find it. Slovakia, I didn't come well equipped. I had all my ducks in a row. I got most of them in a row for the most part, but all right, so let's get it. So it says, uh, page 15, reading it again. Spaniards in the Indies claim that the bulls gave the right to use just war to convert local populations, right? All the tribes or the natives that was in the land, they would go from tribe to tribe, place to place, you know. And they said that the Mayans was an easy win, right? The Moctezuma Empire was an easy win, right? It says to convert local populations who had refused to immediately accept Christianity. So you got to ask yourself, where does Christianity really comes from, man? Right? So this is Babylon to Timbuktu. This book is called Babylon to Timbuktu, and it lets us know, it helps us identify Christianity, right, as a system. It's a systematic slavery system, let's say that. So it says, whenever the Jews were in Spain, Portugal, or their colonial possessions, They disguised themselves as Christians in outward form, but practiced Judaism in secret. Many of these new Christians knew Christian rites before the old white Christians. This system was mainly directed against the new Christian, the secret black Jews. Right? This is the point right here. It says, in another case, a Jewish woman by the name of Elvira del Campo was indicted and tortured for 2 years in order to elicit a confession from her. The charges against her were not eating pork, putting on clean linen on Saturdays. According to this woman, those charges were heretical practices. She wanted to be clean, and pork made her sick. So this is what the excuse that she had to come up with. She said that she wanted to be clean, and pork made her sick. But it also says whenever the Christian Jews could escape from Spain and Portugal beyond the reach of the Inquisition is investigation. It says they threw off the guise of Christianity, practiced Judaism openly as they did in Turkey, right? And we understand that, and if you catch it, Lord willing, you catch it. It says that they went into cargo slave ships to Spain, the natives. So that links up with Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 68, right? That we're about to bring out. So I can. All right, God. All right, so Deuteronomy 28 and 32. It says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. So let's go to the devastation of the native Indians, page 56. And like I said, I can't touch on all of them, but I can touch on the ones that I ran across from reading these two books, man. It's just these two books gave me the most understanding, helping me understand. And I know it's the most I got through the Spirit, showing me exactly how to pinpoint that they're Israelites. So this is page 56. It says, verse 56, it says, the governor could obtain 50 slaves at a time by threatening the cacique, and the cacique is the kings, right? It says, with being burned at the stake or thrown to the fierce dogs if they refused. Since the Indians did not commonly have slaves, at the most a cacique may have 2 or 3 or 4. He simply went through the settlement, taking to begin with all the orphans. So basically the settlement is he agreed to the terms that they would come through every month and obtain like 50 slaves, the strongest men, the most strongest women, the strongest infants, or whatever to their pleasures, whatever they like. But it says he simply went through the settlement, taking to begin with all the orphans, right? Then taking 1 son from those who had 2, and 2 sons from those who had 3. In this way, the cacique, which is king, completed the number demanded by the tyrant, with loud lamentations and weeping by the people, for it seems they most greatly loved their sons. And since this act was repeated many times, that whole kingdom became depopulated during the 20s and until the year 33. So reading this one more time, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. We see this happening to the natives right here. It says, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. We just read how it says, with loud lamentations and weeping by the people, for it seemed they most greatly loved their sons. So reading this again, it says, and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. So we don't see that they're waging war trying to get their kids back or telling them no or anything. They had to agree to the settlement, to the terms, right? Because there was no might in their hand. There was no one to help rescue. They didn't have a complete army like how the conquistadors did, the French did, the Englishman did, right? Because it tell us what all they had on. Man. Let me get that right quick in page 38. So this is Conquistadors and Pueblos, page 38. Lord willing, you following me? It says the great expedition was assembled at Compostela, the general and his officers astride splendidly. Compassed horse wore plummet helmets and voluminous gold and silver embroidered capes over burnished armor. The steel-helmed troops, mounted and on foot, were also draped in large capes that covered tunics and shirts of mail. And that mail is what you see it looked like a shirt, but it's made out of chains. That's from keeping a soldier from stabbing him, right? Whether the neck or the body. It's like a bulletproof vest, an ancient bulletproof vest. It says, or a sword proof vest. It says the steel helmet troops mounted on and on foot were also draped in large capes that covered tunics and shirts of mail and jackets of buckskin and quilted cotton. They were armed with a variety of weapons. So different kind of weapons they was all army with. They armed with. So what is this proving? That they had an army. They was well prepared. The natives only thing they had was crossbows, man. Sling bow and arrows, Salakia, and probably a couple spears. But this is what the conquistadors was loaded with. It says they were armed with a variety of weapons: spears, lances, pikes, maces, halberds, harquebuses. And harquebuses, I believe, is those big ball-like axe things with nails and all kind of things coming out of it. It says, and crossbows. The Indian servants and burden bearers carried clubs and bow and arrows. So that's all they had, right? Was clubs and bow and arrows, man. But the conquistadors, they came well prepared. That's why it says, and they shall have no might in their hand, man. So let's continue, right? Verse 33, it says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. So that leads me to go to page 13 in the devastation of the native Indies, right? Page 13 in the devastation of the native Indies, right? It says, Salakia. I want to save that one. So like I'm gonna read this curse one more time though. It says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, right? Okay. All right, here it is. So page 55 again, right? This is page 55 again. It says, this occurred at the time of year when grain should be sold, and it kept the Indians from usual tasks at seed time, right? So when they're growing the harvest, the crops, the pumpkins, the growing anything that deals with grass, the plants, right? Whether it was coca leaves, whether it was tobacco, whether it was cotton, whatever it was, they would already have their supply throughout the year when it was seed time. It says later on, as a result, the Christians lacked grain, right? Because they didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't know what to do. That's why we always say the natives taught them everything they need over here. They don't want to taught them how to be warm in the cold, right? It says, as a result, the Christians lacked grain, whereupon they seized the stores of the grain the Indians kept for themselves and their families. In the famine that followed, more than 30,000 Indians perished of starvation. Why? Because the conquistadors, the French, the Spanish, they was taking everything from them, man. Taking everything from them. So that goes back to the curses of Deuteronomy, man, where it says the fruit of thy land and all thy labors, everything they labored for, during seed time, it says, shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt only be oppressed and crushed always, man. Right? Because they was dying from starvation. That's being oppressed, man. right? And it tells you in this book what they was eating. And if I go to the other book, Conquistadors and Pueblos, it actually tell us what they was eating, right? So I try to put these books together, man, because they both saying the same thing. Just one is a little bit more detailed than the other, right? So in page 27 in the Conquistadors and Pueblos, it says, in times of hunger, these Indians ate spiders and their eggs, ants, worms, lizards, salamanders, and snakes. During the summer months, they sought relief from the hordes of mosquitoes by setting the grass afire to drive them away. So the point is the things that they was eating, man. And these are creepy things. These are things that we cannot eat. That's in Leviticus 11 and it's in Deuteronomy 14. We cannot eat these things. But our people was eating these things because of the starvation they was dealing with, man. Even eating their children, man. We're gonna get that in a second. Right. So back to the curses. It says, drop down to 36. It says, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which thou neither thy fathers have known, and there thou shalt serve other gods, wood and stone. Right. So that leads me to Salakia. That leads me to 49, right? Because the point is where it says, unto a nation which thou neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there thou shalt serve wood and stone, other gods, wood and stone. So this is where we start to see that the natives and the Mexicans, they didn't accept Christianity. It was beaten to them. It was threatened with captivity gave to them. It was nothing they accepted on their own, man. Right. So this is devastation of the native Indies. This is page 49. It says, yet they are told they must embrace the Christian faith immediately without hearing any sermon preached and without any indoctrination. They are told to subject themselves to a king they have never heard of nor seen. And it's talking about the king of Britain, right? And are told this by the king's messengers, who are such despicable and cruel tyrants that deprive them of their liberty, their possessions, their wives and children. This is not only absurd, but worthy of scorn. So this is how they were serving these other gods, wood and stone. It was forced upon them. But it all goes into the curses of Deuteronomy, the Most High making this happen, man. Whether they want to or not, we should have never crossed the Most High and strayed away from His law, statutes, and commandments, because the natives and the Mexicans, they went into a human sacrifice, man, cutting off the head and drinking the blood, man, eating the flesh. They went into that, and we know that's a no-no in the Torah, man. Right? And the Most High God tell us in Amos 3:6. Let me get that right quick. Then we get back to the curses. And no matter where we are, man, these curses is gonna follow us, and that's what tells us in the curses of Deuteronomy. When we disobey, no matter what country we go to, man, no matter if we go underwater, we go into the heavens, these curses are gonna follow us, man. Hey, and the blessings will follow you also, but we didn't choose to follow His law, statutes, commandments, so curses got put upon us. So this is Amos chapter 3:1. Amos 3:1. It says, "Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying," right? Because the northern kingdom, they was in the land of Egypt too. They was delivered from the land of Egypt also. So it says, "You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquity." Right? So all that human sacrifice, the Most High God punished you by sending a nation which thou knowest not to reign over you. Right? And He making you serve other gods, wood and stone, man. That's why they was forced to accept Christianity. This is the Lord punishing them, man. When you read these two books, it was nothing good about what the conquistadors, the French, the Spanish, and the Englishman did over here. Nothing, right? It said that even Lacasas tried to take them to court, but they put charges against him, and it was called anti-Spanish, something anti-Spanish. He was going to get anti-Spanish propaganda. That's what it was. Anti-Spanish propaganda. They put charges on him, man, just for going to court trying to prove that what they were doing to the people were wrong, right? And let me just get one thing that they was doing, and this blew my mind when I first read this, right? It says, so It says right here, verse 21, it says the suggestion never arises, for example, that the Indians just be left alone. It says Christian responsibility for La Casas meant exposing native people to grace. Indeed, Indians could not be left alone. They were to use his phrase, good enough to be Christians and to be integrated into Christian society. It says, yet, what did it mean to be a Christian? La Casas implies, and this is what he was going about in court. La Casas was the so-called good white man. He was trying to take the other conquistadors, Spanish soldiers and governors to court, trying to prove that what they was doing to the natives was wrong, right? But it says La Casas implies that that was unclear to Spaniards living in the Americas, but it was clear unto him. So basically, what it's saying is the Europeans that came over here and was trying to make them adopt a Christian faith, they didn't even know what Christianity was, man. They just came over here and called it Christianity. So you got to ask yourself, man, what are you following being a Christian? Are you the Christian of antiquity? Or are you a modern day Christian, man? Are you a Christian or are you in Christianity? Because that E-N-A-T is what comes from these books, man. Them forcing it on you. All right. So let's continue. So let's drop down to verse 37. Let's read the next verse 37. We just read 36. Let's read 37. It says, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee. Right? Let's get that. Page 14, 13 and 14 in the Conquistadors and Pueblos. Right? Because when he came over here, Christopher Columbus, what he called them? He called them Indians. Right? And we know that is not their name, because when you look up the word Indian, hey, it does not, you do not see native. You do not see native and Mexicans, man. Matter of fact, I got it written down right here. What the word means, Slovakia. Give me 1 second. Right here. It says Indian, a member of any of the people native to or inhabiting India or the East Indians. Christopher Columbus, he thought he landed on South Asia, man, and he didn't. That's crazy, man. He called them Indians. So that's that proverb and that byword that the natives and the Mexicans was called, man. So right here it says, page 13, Conquistadors and Pueblos. The admiral of the ocean sea failed in his bold attempt to reach the East Indies by sailing westward across the Atlantic Ocean. Right to the end of his life, Christopher Columbus was bewild by the discoveries he made in the New World. Then I go to the next page and just get this point. It says, he had been nothing but a green wilderness inhabited by tribes of naked people who lived in grass huts. Hopefully, at first, that he had reached the Indies, he called them Indians. So this is that proverb and that byword calling us Indians, savages. And I'm going to say us because they are people also. So us, our forefathers. Right? Just like they called the Seminole Indians, they called them runaways or the wild ones. Right? When you look up that word Seminole. Right? So let's go back to the curses of Deuteronomy. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 28. And we're going to drop down to verse 41. It says, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So let's go back to the book. Devastation of the Native Indies, page 55, right? So it says, verse 55, it says, since, Salakia, making sure this is it. All right, yeah, this is it. It says, since all the settlements of the Indians in this fertile land were situated in the midst of gardens and orchards, the Christians resided in them, each Christian taking over the houses of the Indians who had been allocated to him according to the royal grant known as the Encomienda, right? But the point is they're calling these people Christians, man. And these Christians, these heathens, man, was doing nothing but rape, rob, and murdering these people, man. Rape, rob, and murder. And these people brought everything to them: turkeys, pumpkins, man. They brought all of their food to them. You know, not literally all of it, but everything that they had, they gave the conquistadors, the heathen, a piece of it, man, willfully. But as soon as they seen that the natives had gold, it was over. It was over after that, right? So it says, Salakia, it says the Indian who had owned the house now worked for the Christian as his servant, right? It says the so that goes into verse 30 also. This is what I was looking for verse 30 in Deuteronomy 28. But let's keep going. It says, as his servant, cooking his meals, tilling the soil, working without rest. Oh, the pitiful Indians, men and women, the aged and the children all work for the Spanish Christian. For the children, as soon as they could stand on their legs, were put to work, and thus the Indians have been used up and consumed, and the few who survived are still being wasted away. Nor are these hardworking Indians allowed to own a house or anything of their own. So you got to ask yourself, why are you still at the bottom? That's why, man. Because, you know, in the from the 1500s to the 1800s, you was not allowed to own a home, man. When they took your homes, they literally took your home. Some of them they didn't burn down. They would just take them from you and make you sleep in mud houses, man, while they sleeping in yours. So that leads me to say, man, you crazy as hell if you love the heathen, man. You need to be praying for the destruction of the heathen, right? For how they did you, man. How they did your forefathers, man. Because there's nothing nice in this book. These books, nothing. But let's continue. Let's get page 15. Right? So I'm going to read the curse again. Deuteronomy 28 and 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So this is the conquistadors and Pueblos, page 15. It says the unfortunate Indians became the victims of the Spanish conquest, enslaved and forced to dig for gold. Hundreds of thousands were worked to death, killed, or shipped as slaves to Spain. When they were almost exterminated, their Spanish masters began to import Negro slaves from Africa to work on the plantations and in the gold mines. So this is where that stick begins to come together, us being oppressed in the same place. It tells us that in Jeremiah 51. Let me get that right quick as a quick precept. Salakia. All right, guys, Salakia. So this is Jeremiah chapter 50 and 33. Jeremiah chapter 50 and 33. It says, thus said the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go, and they will not let you go even as of now, man. For all you people, all you Israelites, black, Hispanic, and natives who think you free, you're not free, man. That's what passports is about. That is exactly what passports is about. Because if let's say you left the country and your passport expires, they send you to a U.S. embassy, that's whatever country that you go to, and they send you back over here. Best believe that, man. And I want to get that. I want to get that in this Babylon and Timbuktu book, right? About the passports, because this is real, man. And all they got to do is read these books, and it will definitely show you, right? So it says it right here. It says the Jews were leaving the country in such large numbers that in 1499 and 1531, the king published a decree forbidding the new Christian black Jews from leaving Portugal without special permits. And those special permits is talking about passports, man, and what we have today. A passport, man, you're still being kept track of, man. You're still a slave, man. Try to leave without a passport. What you need a passport for if you're leaving the country? You have to understand what it's for, man. And these books will tell you, man. And there's plenty of different books that'll help you understand, man, what's going on. Right. So let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. So this is Deuteronomy, Salakia. I want to read the curse one more time. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So devastation of the native Indies, page 41. After the wars and the killings had ended, when usually there survived only some boys, some women, and children. The Salakia, these survivors were distributed among the Christians to be slaves. This ain't talking about the Negroes, man. This is talking about the Hispanics, I mean the Mexicans and the natives, man. They are Israelites. They fit the curses of Deuteronomy. This is very critical to understand this, man. Because you have some brothers, they only think, if they not black, then they not the Most High God's people, man. Going all off of skin color. The Most High deals with varieties, man. The Most High deals with, hey, there's Israelites of all colors, man. Whether it's to the darkest or to the lightest, man. Straight up. So let's finish these curses out. Right. So this is let's drop down to pay verse 43. Right, verse 43, it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shall come down very low, man. So let's get that in page 13 in the devastation of the native Indies. Right. So this is the devastation of native Indies, page 13. And like I said, I might read these once or twice more, because it fits the curse. It says the Spanish further determined the native labor offered the most immediate path to individual wealth. It says Indian natives could build the houses, tend the fields, and work in the mines, while the conquistadors gained the fortune that had drawn them to the Americas. Come on, man. This is exactly what they was doing with the Negroes, man. Making them pick the cotton, the tobacco, the sugar, the salt, all of that, and they would gain the fortune for it, man. That's why you got pillow companies and mattress companies. That all comes from cotton, man. Shirts, all these come from cotton that the Negroes picked. And we don't share nothing, just like the natives also, man. The natives was the path of individual wealth for the so-called white man that's here in the Americas, man. This is factual, it's written. So let's continue. All right, let's drop down to verse 45. It says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, right? So why would these curses come upon us? He tells us in verse 15, because we follow not the law, statutes, and commandments. So that makes me go back to Salakia. That make me go back to this. Page 16 in Devastation of the Native Indies. The European confronted with the Aztecs did the most to fuel arguments that American Indies were essentially barbarians. The Aztec practice of human sacrifice generally horrified the Spanish. So this horrified the Spanish. But the Las Casas, he came in court and was like, hey, you Europeans used to practice the same thing, right? And it tells you that. It says he used Aristotle's theory of probable error to exonerate their behavior, claiming the ancient history of both pagans and Catholics testifies that almost all people used to do the same thing. So this is Las Casas in court trying to prove that what they was saying while they was trying to conquer the natives was wrong, man. They was trying to use their barbarians. They practice human sacrifice. We have to put them in slavery. We have to control them. But Las Casas came up, stood up in court and was like, we all used to practice this once before, right? So, and when you drop down a little bit farther, it says opponents have charged him with producing anti-Spanish propaganda. So they charged this man with anti-Spanish propaganda, all because he was trying to prove that what the conquistadors, the French, Spanish, Englishman was doing to the natives was wrong. And they charged him with anti-Spanish propaganda, man. You need to understand what the court system is set up for, man. It's not set up for you, right? So let's get one of the things. Let's see what they was doing for Las Casas to take them to court, and then they actually charged him with something. So this is the devastation of native Indians, page 43. And of those islands, the Spaniards perpetrated the same acts of aggression against the Indians and the wicked deeds described above, adding to them many outstanding cruelties, massacres, and burnings of the people, or executing them by flinging them to fierce dogs, torturing and oppressing the survivors, condemning them to the hard labor of the mines, thus eradicating them from the earth, despoiling the land of those unfortunate and innocent people. Before the arrival of the Spaniards, there had lived on these islands more than 600,000 souls. It has been stated, I believe, that there were more than 1 million inhabitants, and now in each of the two islands there are no more than 200 persons, all the others having perished without the faith and without the holy sacraments. So what the hell? And they charged him with anti-Spanish propaganda. Man, come on, man. We got to come out of Christianity, man. Wholeheartedly. We got to come out of Christianity boldly, man. Because we see what they did to our forefathers, right? But let's continue. Let's continue. All right, so going back to them being barbarians, Salakia. Let me finally get back to my way. All right, so it says that they was deemed barbarians because of the practice of human sacrifice, right? So let's get that out of the law, man. This is Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 12. Leviticus 17 and 12, it says, therefore I said unto the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourn among you eat blood. So it tells us right here in the law that we cannot eat blood, man. All right, so let's continue. And whatsoever man there be of the children of Israel or of the strangers that sojourn among you, which hunteth and catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof and cover it with dust. For it is the life of all flesh, the blood of it for the life thereof. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not eat of the blood of no manner of flesh, for the life of all flesh is the blood thereof. Whosoever eateth it shall be cut off. Right? So we understand that we're not supposed to be eating flesh or drinking the blood. When it says eat blood, it's talking about consuming it. And this is what the natives was doing, man. And this is why the Lord sent them, the conquistadors, after them like that, man. Like I said, there's one in Deuteronomy 18 and 9. I can get that one right quick, since I'm already in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 18 and 9, it says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. There shall not be found any among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or they use a divination, or observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consumer with familiar spirits, or a necromancer. Right, Salakia. Verse 8, Salakia. Verse 8 is what I was looking for. They shall have like portions to eat. Beside that, that's not it either. Yeah, that's not it, man. I gotta find it. I must have wrote it wrong. I must have wrote this wrong. All right, so Deuteronomy 12 and 23. Only be sure that thou eat not the blood, for the blood is the life, and thou mayest not eat the life with the flesh. So that human sacrifice that they was doing, they was eating those children, eating, they brothers and sisters, man, eating their family members, their friends, human sacrifice, man, that was going off according to the Torah. So the Most High had to send them. So going back to the curses, verse 45, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou beest destroyed. So that's where you got all of this rape, rob, murder, and pillage that the conquistadors was doing without mercy. It's because the Lord, they had the spirit of the Lord upon them, man. This is the Lord, how mad he was at them for disobeying his commandments, because it tells you in 2nd Ezra 13 that he actually helped the natives get over here to practice those customs. But when they got over here, they practiced human sacrifice, which is against Torah, man. So it says, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Right. So now let's drop down to verse 50. Drop down to verse 50. It says, a nation of fierce countenance, Salakia, verse 49, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. And we all know whose logo is the eagle, man. America, and we all know who America represents. America doesn't just represent everyone. America actually represents the white man. And the so-called white man has different tribes. That's why different tribes, the French, the Spanish, the conquistadors, different tribes of Esau was coming over here. And that's where you get the 1776 Independence Day, right? Because all of these tribes of Esau was over here fighting for the land. They was not only fighting the natives, they was fighting each other also, right? So it says, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, because they did not understand the they didn't understand the conquistadors when they came over here, man. Right? It says, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. Right? So this is devastation of the native Indies, page 33. And like I said, man, you can get all of this information just out of these two books, man, to help you see that they fit the curses of Deuteronomy. Right? So this is page 33. They attacked the towns and spared neither the children, nor the aged, nor pregnant woman, nor women and children in childbed, not only stabbing them and dismembering them, but cutting them to pieces as if they have dealing with sheep in the slaughterhouse. They laid bets as to who, with one stroke of the sword, could split a man in two, or could cut off his head or spill out his entrails with a single stroke of the pike. They took infants from their mother's breast, snatching them by the legs and pitching them head first against the crags, or snatched them by the arms and threw them into the rivers, roaring with laughter and saying as the babies fell into the water, boil there, you offspring of the devil. So they was calling our forefathers the offspring of the devil, man. When we know damn well in 2021 who the devil is, man. Seeing it now, man. So when those people out on the highways and byways or family members or when they call you devil, man, don't believe them, man. Because they call Yahweh devil also. But come to find out they was the real devils. That's the whole point of this. They calling they calling the natives devils, but they was the one who was devils, man. So that's something we should not worry about. But let's continue. Curse 51. It says, and he shall eat eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee any either corn, wine, or oil, or increase of thine kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. So, hey, that brings me back to page 55, man. Page 55 is very important in its devastation of the native Indians, man, when you read it, right? It says, let's read page 55. It says, Salakia. It says, since all the settlements of the Indians in this fertile land were situated in the midst of gardens and orchards, the Christians resided in them, each Christian taking over the houses of the Indians who had been allocated to him according to the royal grant known as encomienda. Encomienda, right? So this is the point right here. The Indian who had owned the house now worked for the Christian as his servant, cooking his meals, right? So the conquistadors was the white man was eating all their food, tilling tilling the soil. So there's out there with shovels or whatever they had back then, tilling the soil, putting plants, seeds in, or trying to get the plants to grow so that they can take it from the natives. It says working without rest. Oh, the pitiful Indians, men and women, the aged and the children all worked for this Spaniard Christian. For the children, as soon as they could stand on their legs, were put to work. It says, and thus the Indians have been used up and consumed, and the few who survive are still being wasted away. Nor are these hardworking Christians allowed to own a house or anything their own. And in this respect, the Spaniards in Nicaragua have gone beyond the excessive of injustice that had been prevailed on the island of Hispaniola. So it was a lot going on the island of Hispaniola, man. Right? But let's continue. It says, Salakia, let me get this also. Right. So not only that they was taking all the natives' food from them and making them cook the food that the natives had. This is in the other book, Conquistadors and Pueblos. And page 27, it says, in times of hunger, these Indians ate spiders and their eggs, ants, worms, lizards, salamanders, and snakes. During the summer month, they sought relief from the hordes of mosquitoes by setting the grass afire to drive them off. So this is what the natives was eating over there, man. While the white man was taking everything from them, man, to the point that they had to eat spiders and the spiders' eggs, man. What? Didn't even give them enough food to survive, man. To survive throughout the day so that they can keep working. They was just letting them die, man. All right, so let's continue on the curses. All right, so it says, let's drop down to verse 53. It was just at 51. We at 53. It says, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters. It says, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege and in the straightness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. Right. So that draws me back to page 55. Right. It says, this occurred at the time of year when grain should be sold, and it kept the Indians from their usual task at seed time. So this goes back to the curse 51 also. It says the Indians from their usual task at seed time. Later on, as a result, the Christians lacked grain, whereupon they seized the stores of the grains the Indians kept for themselves and their families in the famine that followed. More than 30,000 Indians perished of starvation, and there were cases when a woman would kill and eat her own child in desperation. Because why would she kill her own child and eat it instead of dying with honor and integrity? It's because it's in the curses of Deuteronomy. It had to happen, right? For breaking his law, statutes, commandments. Somebody had to fulfill this, right? And we see that not only the Negroes fulfilled it, but the native and the Mexicans fulfilled it also, man. Right? So it says, I'm going to read again. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, man. They fit the curses of Deuteronomy also, man, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. But let's drop down to verse 57. It says, not 57, let's drop down to 62, Salakia. 62, it says, and ye shall be left few in number, wherein as ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. So that brings me to page 29. Page 29. Right, so the Lord said we will be left few in number, man. According to Deuteronomy 28 and 62, this is devastation of the native Indies, page 29. It says, yet into this sheepfold, into this land of meek outcasts, there came some Spaniards who immediately behaved like ravening wild beasts, wolves, tigers, or lions that had been starved for many days. And this is exactly how we're going to act with them also, man. We standing next to our native and our Mexican brothers, man. We're going to act like this also with them. And it's all through the spirit of the Most High God. That's why the first scripture I brought out was Genesis 49 and 19, where it says, Gad shall be overcome, but at the end he shall overcome. A troop shall overcome Gad, but at the end he shall overcome, man. So these same things that happen to us, it's going to happen to them also, right? So it says, yet into this sheepfold, into this land of meek outcasts, there came some Spaniards who immediately behaved like ravening beasts, wild beasts, wolves, tigers, or lions that had been starved for many days. And Spaniards had behaved in no other way during the past 40 years. depopulating the people, man. Like the Lord said in verse 62, and you shall be left in number. Imagine them acting like wild beasts for 40 whole years, man. Come on, man. It says, down to the present time, for they are still acting like ravening beasts, killing, terrorizing, afflicting, torturing, and destroying the native people. So where you think that spirit went, man? It ain't went nowhere. Now, yes, they're not under chattel slavery now, but that spirit of them is still in them, and they're tired of hiding it. If you really look at it, man, look at the big picture, man. They tired of hiding it. Hey, go look up the Rex 84 plan, man. Go look up the Bracero program. Go look up the McCarran Act. Go look up the Indian Removal Act in 1830. These things are still right in our faces, man. They haven't went nowhere, man. Every single president was wicked and had slaves, man. Right? So let's continue. It says, doing all this with the strangest and most variety new methods of cruelty. So they was creating new ways to torture the natives, man. It says, never seen or heard of before, and to such a degree that is this island of Hispaniola, once so populous, having a population that I estimated to be more than 3 millions. It says has now a population of barely 200 persons. Come on, man. That's verse 62. And ye shall be left few in number, wherein ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou was not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. They went into idolatry and human sacrifice, man. And that pissed the Lord off. And we can see that by reading this book. This is the fury of the Most High God, man. Right? Let's drop down to verse 64. It says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all the people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which thou neither thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So there we go again, right? So let's go to page 49. There we go again, man. Serving wood and stone. It says, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So that brings me back to 45, where it says, devastation of the native Indians, page 49. They have dissimulated the fact that only with blood and fire have the Indians been brought to embrace the faith and to swear obedience to the king of Castile, or by threats of being slain or taken into captivity. Come on, man. It had nothing to do with the natives actually believing the doctrine that they brought out, because it tells you right here that they didn't even bring a doctrine. It was either be a Christian, which is a slave, or die, or go into captivity. So let's drop down a little bit. It says, yet they are told they must embrace the Christian faith immediately. It says, without hearing any sermon preached and without any indoctrination. So they didn't have nothing, no scriptures, no nothing. It says, they are told to subject themselves to a king they have never heard of nor seen, and are told this by the king's messengers, who are such despicable and cruel tyrants that deprive them of their liberty, their possession, their wives and children. This is not only absurd, but worthy of scorn. Far more greater than worthy of scorn, man. And the Most High God is going to deal with this, man. We are not to take vengeance in our own hands. That's not what we preach. The Lord is going to do it. But guess who he's going to use? Genesis 49 and 19, he's going to use Gad and Reuben. Right? But let's continue. It says, drop down a little bit more. They should read in a loud voice his order, Caciques and Indians of this land. Hark ye, we notify you that there is but one God and one Pope and one King of Castile, who is the Lord of these lands. Give heed and show obedience. This is what they would say to the natives when they approached them. Give heed and take heed and give obedience. Right? It says, etc., etc. And if not, be warned that we will wage war against you and will slay you or take you into captivity. Come on, man. Let's continue. It says, then in the early dawn, when these innocents are asleep with their wives and children, and this talking about the innocents, the natives, man, because they didn't do nothing, right? It goes back to them breaking the law, statutes, commandments against God, but how the way that they did it, it tells you all throughout the scriptures that when our calamity and our iniquity had an end, y'all went way too far, right? It says these innocents are asleep with their wives and children. The Spaniards attacked and entered the town and set fire to the houses, which, being calmly made of straw, burned rapidly with all those who were within. Thus they proceeded, killing as many as they liked and torturing those they took alive, because they had been told of other settlements where there was gold. See, this is the most thing they was worrying about. If they had gold, they was gonna kill everybody, take some into captivity, kill the rest. Hey, and they wanted that gold, man. It says more than there was in this one. And then they took a number of survivors in chains to sell them as slaves. Wait, so who the other people that went into chains? The Negroes, man. That's how you know we the same people. Facts. The natives was took in chains. The Negroes was took in chains. The Mexicans was took in chains, man. The whole 12 tribes of Israel. We are the Israelites according to the Bible. But let's continue. Let's get Babylon to Timbuktu right quick. As a matter of fact, I already brought that out. It's cool. I already brought that out. Right. So let's read the next verse. It says, "And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind." So let's go to page 54. Right, page 54. It says, Salakia, page 54, it says, and they put the captives in chains and made them carry heavy loads. Matter of fact, let's read. Let's get this. It says he sent companies of Spaniards to open up other provinces. That is to say, to attack and pillage the people in those provinces. Man, this is all they thought about. They were allured to capture as many Indians as they liked in peaceable settlements, right? To become their slaves, and they put the captives in chains and made them carry heavy loads. Drop down a little bit. It says the result was that the number of captives soon dwindled, most of them dying from exhaustion, so that from 4,000 captives, there remained only 6. They left the dead bodies on the trail. They were decapitated corpses, for when a captive sank under the heavy load, the Spaniards cut off his head, which fell to one side while the body fell to the other, while the captives chained together continued their march without interruption. So they would cut the head off just so they didn't have to stop and unbuckle the chain from around his neck, man, the yoke from around his neck. So they would just cut his head off and make the slaves keep walking. This is what they was doing to our people, man. It says, when commanded to do similar labor with this experience behind them, now this is the point. The surviving Indians went off weeping and saying, "These are the roads down which we went to serve the Christians." The Christians, man. Christianity. It says, "In the past, even when we worked hard, we could return to our houses, our wives and children, but now we go without hope of ever again seeing them." So this goes into the curse of 65. "And among these nations thou shalt find no ease," right? Because they would let them go back to their homes for certain periods of time, right? You got to understand they deal with different tribes differently. Like some tribes, they would rape, rob, and pillage and take everything, right? Even the slaves. But some, they would let them keep what they got, and they would just come and rape them for their resources and leave them and leave them again until they came back next time. But they was not so lucky every time. Sometimes they'd just be like, to hell with it, and just take them all, right? And this is the mindset they would have. The surviving Indians went off weeping, saying, "These are the roads down which we went to serve the Christians. In the past, even when we worked hard, we could return to our houses, our wives and children, but now we go without hope or ever seeing them again." Right? So let's get the next verse, man. In fact, let me get one in Conquistadors and Pueblos, page 38. Conquistadors and Pueblos, page 38. This is what they had them carrying, man. It says Mexican Indians were pressed into service to lead the spare horses, to drive the pack mules loaded with baggage, supplies, and provision, and to herd the droves of cattle, sheep, and goats that would provide the army with meat. So that's all they was used for, man. And they was dying of it, being so tired, man, being thirsty, being hungry. They wasn't even giving them the energy that they needed to continue, man, because they looked at it like we got millions and millions of native Indians around here that we can take as slaves, man. Which means what? That goes into you being three-fifth of a human being, man. You're not a human in their eyes, man. You a damn slave, man. You half of a human. But to the Most High God, you are his chosen people of the earth, man. It's you who's supposed to be ruling the earth, right? So let's continue. Let's get the last verse, man. So the last verse I got, man, what I got to link to the curses of Deuteronomy is 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So what we do when we go out to the highways and byways, we use that only for the Negroes to prove that, because we can definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, prove that the Negroes went into cargo slave ships. But you got to understand, when they went and got them from us from the west coast of Africa, and they came to the Americas, they would drop us off and they would pick up native Indians and take them to Spain, man, take them to their homeland. Which means what? They went on cargo slave ships also. And this is the proof. This is Conquistadors and Pueblos, page 15. The unfortunate Indians became the victims of the Spanish conquest, enslaved and forced to dig for gold. We was digging tobacco, sugar, salt, cotton. They was digging for gold and rubies and diamonds. Hey, same thing though. That's how America's so rich, man. They use the Northern Kingdom for specific digging. They use the Southern Kingdom for specific digging. It says uh, hundreds of thousands were worked to death, killed, or shipped as slaves to Spain. So there you have it, man. They went on cargo slave ships also, man. It's called the days of trafficking. They went into cargo slave ships also. It says when they were almost exterminated, their Spanish masters began to import Negro slaves from Africa to work on the plantation and in the gold mines, man. So that goes back to Jeremiah 50 and 33. One more time before I close out, right? That goes back to Jeremiah 50. So I can 50 and 30. It says 33. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go, man. And they're not going to let us go. The Most High God has to send his only begotten Son to come and deliver us from our enemies. So let's close off with that. Let's close off with that. Salakia. All right, so this is Luke chapter 1. And let's start at 68. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people. So the Lord is going, he hath visited us and he's redeeming us. He's bringing us back to who we are. He's fulfilling Ezekiel 37, bringing that stick together, man, so that we can be a rod in his hand. It says, he has visited and redeemed his people and have raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, right? He raised up a house for us because we know King David, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom was together. It says, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. So us being oppressed here together in Americas, Babylon the Great, man, us being oppressed together, the Lord said he's gonna save us from the hand of our enemies and all them that hate us, man. It says to perform the mercies promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he sware to our fathers. He sware to our fathers that he would grant unto us that we being delivered out of the hand of our enemies might serve him without fear, man. And it tells you the same thing in Ezekiel chapter 37. So, brothers and sisters, Lord willing, you was edified, man, understanding that the natives and the Mexicans, hey, they are the children of Israel also, man, the northern kingdom, man, the lost 10 tribes, and they're not lost anymore. We know exactly who they are. They are being oppressed right along with us, man. So, Lord willing, you was edified, man. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashem, Hamashiach, Wamalak, Yahushua, and to the 12 tribes that heard doing its work in truth and sincerity. Death to this place, man. Death to the habitation of this place, man. Shalom, wa barak mashpakah.